Okay, so welcome everybody. We're going to start by opening up a new template here. A little bit longer lecture today than usual. We've got 3 new commands to learn. And there will be, all this will of course be on our end of the week quiz. So follow along and you'll submit this for today's lecture assignment. So our first command is scale. I'll go my 0 layer here. And what we're going to do is we're going to start, I'm going to use our polyline tool, and I'm just going to draw a random shape here. I'm going to make it look kind of like a crown. It's pretty good, isn't it? And then I'll hit C to close our shape, so remember that. And then I'm going to take this shape and I'm going to copy it a couple times. So I'll type in copy, and then the shortcut CO. I'm just going to select our kind of midpoint here and make a copy right next to it. We'll just make one copy for now. Everybody with me so far? Oh, come on. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to take our object here on the right, and I'm going to want to scale it. So I'm going to start by selecting it. So I'm going to select the whole thing here. And the shortcut for scale is just SC. So you can either type in scale or hit SC as our shortcut. And we'll hit enter. And the first thing it's going to ask us is, looking at our command line here at the bottom, it's telling us to specify a base point. So this is like when we run our copy command or our move command. We need to specify a base point. So I'm going to want our object here, my kind of crown, to scale from this middle point upward. So I'm going to select that as my scale base point. And you'll notice right now, if you start moving your mouse, you can make it bigger or smaller. And looking at our command line, we can see it's asking us to specify a factor. So a factor, if we do a factor of 1, then it's not going to modify or scale our image at all. It'd be a 1-to-1 ratio. If we enter in 2, it's going to make our object twice as big. If we enter a fraction, say 0.5, it's going to make our image half the size. So I'm going to hit 0.5 here and hit enter. And we can see that it has scaled our object to where if we were to go and dimension it, we can see that our it's exactly 1/2 now that we scaled. So a quick and easy way to scale things. We can also take this image here, and I'll run my scale again. This time, I'm just going to select a different point to scale from. I'm going to select kind of a random point over here, which will allow me to scale our object. See how now it's growing to the right, since I have our base point as way over here. And this time I'll do a factor of 4, so that's going to make it 4 times bigger. And then I'm going to do a Z enter and E enter to zoom out all the way. And now we can see we were half the size of our original. We went to 4 times larger than that, which would be twice the size of our original. And looking at our dimensions here, we can see that we're now about twice the size there. So it went from 4.5, some change, to 9.1. So All right, so another scale command, and the scale that we'll probably use most in this class is when we actually need to scale an object relative to another object. So let me demonstrate what that means. I'm going to start by drawing a circle. Let's just do a 2-point circle. And I'm going to pick one end of my crown as one point of my circle, and then I'm just going to go kind of randomly straight across to another point here. And now I want my crown to be scaled to fit inside this circle. So I want this point to go across to this end of the circle here. So what I'll do is I will select my crown. And we'll do our scale again. And then we're already touching on this side. So I want this side here to be my base point. So I'm going to select that. And then instead of a scale, I am going to hit R for reference. And what this will allow me to do is I can now select this portion of my crown, and then I'm going to go across to click on this portion of my crown. And now you'll notice when you move your mouse, it's stretching our object, scaling it perfectly proportional as we move our mouse. So I can go until I snap my edge right to here. Looks like right about there. And now I have scaled my crown to fit perfectly inside this circle. Yeah, hit R for reference. So I'll demonstrate that one more time here. And this time, why don't we do it with a little simpler shape. So I'm just going to draw a rectangle. Okay, we'll go through that one more time. So follow along here. Just draw a simple rectangle. And then I'm going to draw a line at the bottom. And we're going to make it a nice straight line all the way over to here. So say I want to take this box, and we can even make this box more complex. Let's say it's a more kind of complex shape. We'll go all crazy here. So here's my object, and I want to scale this object so the bottom of my rectangle is the entire length of this line. Okay, so you with me so far? So what I'm going to do is I'm first going to select just my object, so not this bottom line here, but just my object. So scrolled over that. I'm going to type in scale. And then we specify our base point. So I want to lock my box on this bottom left point, because that's where we want to scale from. That point is in the right point. And then you'll notice already, now as I move my mouse, it's moving all of our lines. But it would be impossible to kind of snap it to this line because it's in our factor. But if we look at our command line here, we can see that it says we can insert a factor, or, and we have two options here, copy or reference. So we're going to hit R for reference, or you can click on reference. And then now we select the part of our box that we're going to want to stretch from. So what we want is this bottom line. So we're going to specify that first. So I'm going to hit, again, our base point to our line here. This is the bottom of our box here. Now you'll notice as you move your mouse, it's now stretching our box perfectly. And if I snap this to the end of our line, now this entire box has been perfectly scaled to the same proportion of this line here at the bottom. So both of those are now the exact same size. So I'm going to back up just one step here. My backup isn't working here. So I'll repeat that one more time here. We've got this box. I'm going to scroll over this box just to select our box. I'm going to type scale. Okay, it's asking us for our base point here at our command line. So I'm going to hit base point here because this is where I want to enlarge from. And then now it's asking us to specify a factor, or, and it gives us two options. We're going to choose this one here, reference. And now we're going to punch in our two reference points. So we want the bottom of this box. So I'm going to select, this is our bottom. And then I'm going to stretch this over to snap to the end of our line. And now we've rescaled our box to be the same size as that line. And it's scaled it all proportionally, kept everything the same. Okay, so I know it's a little confusing, but as we go through today's assignment, you'll be doing a lot of scaling, so that'll give you a chance to practice this and experiment from there. Okay, something else you need to learn today. So that scale, that was our first command. The second command we're going to learn today is to set our line thicknesses. So what we can do is click on a line. So I'm going to click on two lines here, these two lines going diagonally in my box. And we can just go right up here to our line, it's kind of our properties section here. And this little middle option here says line weight. So weight is just a fancy way of saying thickness. And we're going to go through here. When we click on this, we can see there's a bunch of different options here for thickness. So I'm just going to go to... if you don't see this, you might not be on your Home tab. So the two lines that I selected, I then changed the line weight to 1 millimeter, and it made these lines thicker. And they kind of stay this thickness even as you zoom in and out. So zooming in, they're still thicker than my other lines, and zooming out.
Wait, what do you click when you go to the lightweight?
So I'll do another one here. So this line here, say I want to make this a little thicker, so I'm going to line weight, and there's all these different thicknesses or weights. So I'm going to do maybe 0.5 millimeter, so not quite as thick as my other lines. So we can see I have these at 1 millimeter, and then that one at 0.5 millimeter. Now, another way of adjusting our line weights is we can adjust it for the entire layer. And so we do that by going to our layer properties. So there's this box right here for layer properties. And we're going to go through this layer properties in great detail, but I wanted you to kind of start becoming a little familiar with it. So here's my layer properties. Right now, I'm drawing in our 0 layer. You're probably drawing in your object layer. But I can go here, and there's an option here for line weight. And so simply by clicking on this, I can go through and say 2 millimeters, clicking on that, and then going back and looking at my shape. Now everything that I've drawn in that layer is now that line thickness. So quick and easy way to adjust your line weights for everything in an entire layer. So we're going to be doing a lot of work with layers, so it's important that you familiarize yourself with this layer properties. So that is line weight. The last thing you need to learn for today's assignment is the ellipse command. So a ellipse is kind of like a squished circle, or a circle that kind of has two different radii. EL is the shortcut for ellipse. And looking at our bottom here, what it wants us to do is specify an axis. So that's kind of all the way across. So say I want to draw an ellipse in this box. I'm going to first draw my axis. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to go all the way across. So an axis is basically like a diameter. It goes all the way across. And then now it's going to have me specify a inside I don't know why mine's looking a little weird here, but so now it's going to have me specify my second radius, which is kind of the width of our ellipse. So I'll go maybe about halfway up here. So you can see here, it's drawn. Kind of looks like maybe an egg, but it's a circle here that's been squished. So I'll show you that another time. I'll show it right over here. So we're going EL is the shortcut for ellipse. So EL, hit enter. First thing we're going to do is specify our axis, and our axis doesn't even need to be straight. So I can go at an angle here. And then now it's going to give me a circle here, and then now we're going to punch in our axis, and I could say, you know, an axis of 3. And now it's going to draw our ellipse, or kind of squished circle here, with the axis that we drew, and then there's sort of this middle radius here of 3. There is a toolbar for ellipse in our home section here, so you can also, if you forget what it's called, it's this command right here, and then it talks a little bit about it. And then there's the ellipse that we've been doing is the axis and end. You can also do an ellipse where you specify a center point, so I'll demonstrate that to you. So say I want to put an ellipse kind of in the center of my crown here, so I can click my center point, specify one radius, and then the other radius. So it's not really a radius, but you get the idea. So again, that's the ellipse. So the 3 commands we learned today is, the first one was to scale objects. What do we type for that? SC, shortcut for scale. Very good. Second one was our line weight. So easiest thing to do there is just go into our properties here and adjust the line weight. Or if you want to change the weight for everything in a layer, you can go into your layer properties and adjust the line weight there. And then our last command to create these kind of stretch circles. What was that called?
Ellipse.
Ellipse, very good. And shortcut for that? EL, very good.
How do you make like everything like big?
So, to do everything in your layer, you go to your layer properties, which if you're on your home is this right here, which brings up a separate dialog window here. So if you're in your, say, object layer, which is what we normally draw on in class, and you want to adjust your thickness of everything in that layer, you go to this line weight section here, and just by clicking on it, you can adjust the line weight. And by adjusting it here, it's going to adjust everything in your layer, except for the things that you've manually overridden. This will be scale, line weight, and ellipse. You can name it anything you want, as long as you can recognize it. So you